This is Qtv News and I am Jennifer Sonko. Thanks for joining us. First, the main local, international and sports news headlines. At its second meeting of the year, the Cabinet approved a number of Cabinet papers. Among other things, they agreed to increase the allowances for doctors, approved an elections bill and a paper on the Banjo Rehabilitation Project. Yet another NIA investigating panel member has appeared before the TRRC. One of these, Mahmoud Haidara, a former acting Director General of the NIA, gave evidence about unlawful arrest, torture and detention. We hear why the residents of Sare Ngaba are worried about the scarcity of their water supply as well as their health concerns over the only source of water in the village. In international news, we hear about Turkey's growing influence across Africa. Is Africa about to see a positive change in relations with Africa? We looked at the promising signs from Biden administration. In sports news, Gambia's under-17 team get off to a bad start after a 4-2 loss in their first match in the WAFA Zone A tournament in Chess, Senegal. Back at home, we hear about a 6-goal thriller in a Division 2 game on Thursday. Those were the main headlines and now the news in detail. Do stay with us. Thank you for joining us. At its second cabinet meeting of 2021 held on Thursday, the executive approved various cabinet papers, among them a request to increase the allowances of doctors and PhD holders at the central level of the ministry. As Alucisi reports, cabinet also reviewed the election bill to be presented before the parliament.
A paper presented by the Minister of Health, Dr. Ahmad Lamin Samate, requesting an allowance increment for doctors and PhD holders at the Ministry of Health was reviewed and adopted by the Cabinet. Sharing with journalists the outcome of the Cabinet session, Ibrahim Silla, the Information Minister, revealed that Cabinet was informed that over the years, the Minister of Health has found it difficult to attract highly qualified medical doctors from hospitals to work at the central mainstream ministry because of the sharp difference in salary and take-home pay between medical doctors at the Central Ministry of Health and those of their counterparts in the hospitals.
The difference in incentive packages offered by the different arms of the same ministry is a source of disincentive to strike the right balance in terms of moving the relevant high-caliber staff around to serve where they are considered needed from time to time. As part of efforts to bring in efficiency and synergy in the incentive packages within the health sector, Cabinet approved the proposal to increase the allowances payable to medical doctors and PhD holders at the central level of the Ministry of Health to be comparable to their colleagues in the hospitals and other government agencies.
The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dauda Jallow, also presented a paper on the election bill which was discussed and approved by Cabinet. The paper details the general conduct of elections in the Gambia to create and enhance an electoral process which is free, fair and credible.
The elections bill will regulate the conduct of future elections in the Gambia. Following an exhaustive discussion, Cabinet directed the Attorney General to present the elections bill to the National Assembly for enactment into law.
Cabinet also discussed a report of the task force established by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice into the circumstances surrounding the trafficking of 38 Gambian women returnees from Lebanon. On works and infrastructure, the Minister of Works, Lamin Job, presented a paper on the revised scope of the Banjo Rehabilitation Project of roads, drains and sewage systems. The proposed scope of work will cover 17 streets in the older parts of the city and 4 additional streets in the Tobacco Road area. These works will be attended by an equal refurbishment of drainage and site works.
It is proposed that the major outlet drains on Cotton Street, Kent Street, Combo Street, Grant Street and Albion to Boxbar are to be covered in order to curtail the prevalence of dumping of solid waste in them, which has been choking the drainage system. Built in the 1950s, the walls of these drains are either weak or have collapsed in sections, and hence the need to reconstruct them in order to support the covers.
According to Minister Job, the required additional works are complementary to the ongoing roads, drainage and sewage works in Banjul and are in line with the need to have uniform quality and standards for the city's infrastructure. Reporting for QTV News, I am Alucisi.
Several members of the National Intelligence Agency investigating panel have received adverse mentions in relation to their interrogation of suspects. One of these, Mamudu Haidara, a former acting director general, appeared before the TRRC on Thursday to give evidence about unlawful arrest, detention and torture at the NIA. Omar Pijalo has the rest of that story.
Testifying before the TRRC, the Bansang-born operative told the commission that he started work as an untrained teacher before joining the National Security Service in 1992 and later went to study counter-terrorism in Nigeria in 1996. The witness described the NIA as an agency that was badly created under a military decree following the disbandment of the NSS shortly after the military takeover in 1994. Hydra said the NIA lost focus of its duty as a state intelligence agency, becoming instead a special arm responsible for implementing the president's wishes, even though most of his wishes were illegal. He added that some NIA operatives were also involved in investigating drug cases, which was not part of their mandate.
It is hard or even impossible to go through those process of providing an attorney. Even if the suspect or the accused asks for it, I am pretty sure and 100% sure it was not going to be provided.
The witness also described former President Jammeh as someone who enjoys seeing, hearing and putting people in pain, and this was a common knowledge at the NIA, as the supervisors from the State House would put Jammeh on telephone to hear the screams of the suspects, who were usually tortured to force them to confess.
He enjoys putting people in pain or in misery. So many evidence were there that I heard and know, sure, that he did. For example, killing of innocent people just for some little trivial issues. Not even sparing your own family members.
Contrary to Permendi's testimony implicating him, the witness denied giving instructions for Permendi to be taken downstairs, to be tortured and be brought back to the panel for refusing to cooperate with the panel. On his dismissal, arrest and detention at the Mile 2 Central Prison, Hydra said he was dismissed twice and accused by the former President Jammeh of deferring the president's orders. He added that after he was released from the Mile 2 Central Prison, he flee into exile to save his life. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Omar Pijalo.
We will take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we have more local news stories. Do stay tuned. Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is Qtv News. Now, water is a precious and important resource, much of what we do in our daily lives. The residents of Saringaba are worried about the scarcity of supply and health concerns over the only source of water in the village. According to locals, the water gets muddy and unfit for both human and animal consumption. This story by Fode Mane is narrated by Ashma Uba.
The only source of water in Saringaba village is a well dug over 30 years ago, serving a population of over 2,500. The well is used for domestic use and also a drinking point for about 750 animals, including cattle, sheep, goats, donkeys, and horses. Jabu Sow, the women's leader of the village, explains the challenges caused by water scarcity for women and children.
Sabu rewɓe ɓen surtout debbo reedu wonat reedu ko ɗo poli foɗata.
We the women encounter most of the difficulties, especially the pregnant women who find it hard to draw water from the well. Our children cannot go to school if they do not have water to drink, take bath and wash their uniforms. Sometimes the well gets dry and muddy, which makes the water unhealthy, meaning we have to go to the neighboring villages to get water. Drawing water by pulling ropes with bare hands is difficult, and the community sometimes use animals to pull or draw water buckets tied to ropes. Ansatuba, a community member, says the water causes a lot of health complications for them.
Babi ipoda, yimbe ipoda, min galandi ya moƴƴam. Ko ɗam ndiyam min jarata. Waktu fo waktu, miɗen he lawol lopitan. Waktu fo waktu miɗen he lawol lopitan. Sabu hoɗon gandi.
We don't have clean water in this community, and that has really affected our health. Sometimes we take our children to hospital complaining of diarrhea and other health problems. Pregnant women also complain of stomach ache due to the unclean water they are consuming. We are enduring a difficult situation. We are calling on the government and philanthropists to support us. Idrissa Godoba, speaking on behalf of the village alcalo, highlighted some of the other basic necessities lacking in the village.
Affaire ndiyam ɗam noon ɓuri min ɓittinde wadde neɗɗo kay so yi haɗa wona neɗɗo tan ko ndiyam.
Water is what we need most, but we also lack other important necessities like a good road to easily get to the hospital. We also don't have a mosque to observe our daily prayers. We have been using this small structure for 35 years. Sometimes we trek for many kilometers to pray at neighboring villages. We also need support from either the government or philanthropists.
Residents of this community complain that the scarcity of water has affected their daily activities. Without a clean source of water, even performing ablution to observe the 5 daily prayers is becoming a challenge. Asma Oba, QTV News.
We will take another short commercial break, and when we come back, we will take a look at international and sports news. Do stay tuned. Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News. Now on to some international news. As the race for Africa heats up, Turkey is gradually having more influence on the continent as it seeks to further strengthen relations through what it calls its policy of benevolence. However, experts say its power shouldn't be overestimated. Aliou Cisse has the rest of this.
Relations between Turkey and Africa have gained substantial momentum since the declaration of Turkey as a strategic partner of the continent by the African Union in January 2008. The relationship constitutes one of Turkey's key foreign policy objectives. This is manifested by a recent move by Turkey to define itself as an Afro-Eurasian state instead of a Eurasian state. Its influence on the continent is driven by its engagement with African countries in the areas of trade, military cooperation, education, diplomacy, and infrastructure, among others. For the Gambia, a tiny West African nation, over the years, cooperation has been established and support from Turkey received in vital sectors of the country's economy. The various agreements signed between the two countries, especially during President Barros's visit to Ankara, amply demonstrate the high-level cooperation between the two countries. The goodwill, friendship, and strong ties of cooperation between Turkey and the Gambia was further strengthened by the historic visit of Recep Tayyip Erdogan to the Gambia last year as part of a 3 African nation tour, including Algeria and Senegal. The Gambia was the 28th African country he visited as at January 2020, both as a prime minister and president, signaling the importance Turkey attaches to Africa. The Turkish government has demonstrated strong support to the Gambia's transitional program with military support to the tune of $17 million for a period of 5 years, which is ongoing. The Gambia government also gained support from Turkey to build the capacity of security forces by training 500 officers on peacekeeping. Turkey's instrumental role in supporting the Gambia to host the OIC summit and sharing Turkey's experience in hosting such a world event is also evident to the bilateral ties. We are determined to enhance ties with African countries. The trade volume has reached $26 billion, a 381% increase in the last 17 years as a result of our efforts, Erdogan was quoted last year. Turkey and African countries' bilateral trade rose to $23.8 billion in 2018 from $5.5 billion in 2003, while Turkey's export jumped by 579% to $14.4 billion in the same period, according to Rosa Pekan, Turkey's Minister of Trade in 2019. But according to observers, $14 billion export figure was too low for the large African continent. Furthermore, the establishment of the Office of the Turkish Agency for International Development, TICA, in the Gambia will ensure an effective way of harnessing and strengthening cooperation. Through Banjul-Ankara cooperation, there is commencement of the Banjul-Istanbul route with Turkish Airlines, thus opening up new frontiers in business between the two countries. We see the people of Africa as our brothers with whom we share the same fate. We approach their pain not with political, strategic, and interest-based goals, but completely humanly and conscientiously, Erdogan was quoted saying in Senegal. There are in Turkey a little-known community, the Afro-Turks, who are descendants of Africans such as Sudan and Eritrea, who arrived in the Ottoman Empire in the 19th century as African slaves, mainly for agricultural work. After the founding of the modern Turkish state, all were meant to assimilate and consider themselves Turkish first and foremost. As a result, despite a revival in pride at being Afro-Turks, none of the communities have retained their ancestors' African languages. Ankara has presented itself as an alternative, benevolent brother to the European powers who once colonized the continent. Since 2011, Turkey is reported to have spent over $1 billion on aid and infrastructure in Somalia. Turkey has its largest embassy in Mogadishu. However, some analysts say Turkey is a major power mainly in humanitarian aid, but not in other realms, as it is a new actor that has met over big states in Africa before it, such as China or France. Turkey currently has embassies in 42 out of the possible 54 countries and commercial councillors in 26 countries of the African continent. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Aliou Cisse.
As U.S. President Joe Biden promises to restore diplomatic ties with allies, QTV's Antumana Esonyasi takes a look at what this means for the African continent, which has welcomed his election as an opportunity for more collaboration between Africa and the USA.
The election of U.S. President Joe Biden has renewed hopes in Africa, especially in the wake of his lifting of former President Trump's travel ban on Muslim countries, which affected several African countries. Despite facing many domestic challenges that may appear insurmountable, Africa remains upbeat about the prospect of the Biden administration elevating U.S.-Africa ties through policies that will bring prosperity to the continent. In a major shift from his predecessor, Biden in his inaugural address declared America is back, signifying his determination to strengthen America's role as a global leader in diplomacy. His move to lift travel bans and rejoin the WHO, among other major policy moves, has been welcomed in Africa. Presidents all over the continent had written congratulatory messages, with many expressing hope that the Biden administration will be much more engaged with African partners. Nigeria's Muhammadu Buhari has urged Biden to deploy his vast experience in tackling the negative consequences of nationalist politics on world affairs. While Kenya's Uhuru Kenyatta says his victory presents an even greater opportunity for more collaboration with Kenya and the continent. During his time in Congress, Biden was known for his strong support for Africa, notably his 1986 campaign against the apartheid regime in South Africa. As vice president during the Obama administration, Biden spent a week on the continent, visiting several African countries. Across the continent, hopes remain high. His African team mainly consists of familiar faces, including Antony Blinken, who served under Presidents Clinton and Obama, Nicholas Burns, who began his diplomatic career under George W. Bush, and Susan Rice, and Michelle Gavin, who represents the U.S. at the UN and in Southern Africa, respectively under the Obama administration. And key policy options that could address critical areas of mutual interest include the improvement of existing trade agreements, such as the African Growth and Opportunity Act, negotiate free trade agreements, support the ratification and implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, strengthen existing educational programs such as the Mandela Washington Fellowship, restore the Obama-era target number for refugee settlement in the U.S., and collaborate with African governments to curb illicit financial flows, amongst others. Whilst it may be too early to say what the Biden administration's African policy will entail, across the continent there is certainly renewed hope of countering the negative and disengaged relationship of the Trump administration. Antoine Sonyasi for Qtv News.
Now on to some sports news. Gambia's under-17 team had a poor start to the WAFU Zone A tournament in Chess, Senegal. They lost 4-2 to the host, whose Ibusen was named man of the match after grabbing a hat-trick. Gambia are with Senegal and Mauritania in Group A, while Group B comprises Mali, Sierra Leone and Guinea-Bissau. The top 2 teams from each group qualify to the semi-finals, and the 2 final teams will represent the Western Zone A in the final phase of the total under-17 Africa Cup of Nations scheduled in March 2021 in Morocco. Match day 4 of the GFF Second Division League match between Red Hawks and Gunjur ended in a thrilling 3-all draw. Our reporter Mamadou Gajaga watched it at the Independence Stadium in Bakau, and he fastened his report.
Goals, skills and beautiful attacking football are the adjectives that best describe this game. Gunjur took the lead as early as the 7th minute through Salifu Bojang. The assist for his goal was beautiful show of skill and technique from Dauda Dabo, who dribbled past the defender before laying on a pass for Salifu to tap in. A resurgent comeback follows the Gunjur goal celebration. Just moments later, Lamin Bojang led a Red Hawks attack in the box. Beat Sekou Barrow, his perfect volley went into the net for an equalizer by Bailo Bar. Red Hawks then ensured they went to the break in the lead with another goal. Aliou Kamara caught the Gunjur defence unawares and crossed, running through. Sekou Koli scored with a left-footed kick to give Red Hawks a 2-1 lead. The second half was more trailing and also had 3 goals to show for it, as well as several missed chances from both sides. Gunjur's Dauda Dabo had his second assist of the game when he ran onto the right before his excellent cross was headed in by a mean foul for an equalizer for the Kombosat boys. Gunjur took the lead again for the second time in the game, midway into the second half. Salifu Bojang scored his second of the match with a well-taken shot in the box. Just when it appeared they would win the game, Red Hawks took the advantage of an open space in the Gunjur defence to earn a point with this goal. Sekou Koli taps into an empty net to complete a brace and level for Red Hawks. Gunjur head coach Buba Bojang says his team have been battling problems in defence.
Yeah, our Saturdays will have to win here because if you see the game, we are the first team to score, and they equalize us, and then they score us. We went back we went for break, and when we come back, we score them and we score them 3-2. Then we have to see that post, that goal. If you see all our games, we score, our strikers score, and they cannot defend it. So we have defensive problem because one of our central defender has travelled. He doesn't come back still. So our defense is lack of experience. To arrange them is the problem.
Mamadou Jallo, coach of Red Hawks, says they conceded goals due to lack of concentration.
Well, it was a well-contested game. The result does not favour us, but at least it is 1 point. We came for 3 points. Unfortunately, we have 1 point because of lack of concentration. We are not disappointed. At least we are the team who created the chances. Maybe next time when we create something like this, we will score.
After this display, fans of both clubs will be looking forward to goals and excitement in their upcoming fixtures. Mamadou Gajaga, Qtv News.
Before we end this news bulletin, let's take a quick look at our main stories. At its second meeting of the year, the Cabinet approved a number of Cabinet papers. Among other things, they agreed to increase the allowances of doctors, approved an elections bill, and a paper on the Banjul Rehabilitation Project. Yet another NIA investigating panel member has appeared before the TRRC. Momodu Haidara, a former acting director general, gave evidence about unlawful arrest, detention, and torture at the NIA. We heard why the residents of Sarengaba are worried about the scarcity of their water supply, as well as their health concerns over the only source of water in the village. In international news, we heard about Turkey's growing influence across Africa. Is Africa about to see a positive change in relations with Africa? We looked at the promising signs from the Biden administration. In sports news, Gambia's under-17 team got off to a bad start after a 4-2 loss in the first match in the WAFU Zone A tournament in Chess, Senegal. We had about a 6-goal thriller in a Division 2 game on Thursday. Well, that is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News. Do join us tomorrow, same time for more news. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend and do take care of yourselves.